Hi everyone, my name's Yujiro Taniyama, and I'm an outspoken samurai of the 21st century. It is a well-known common sense among the international society today that the communist Chinese government is truly a master at falsifying the truth. Especially the Chinese Foreign Ministry, who's recently been insisting lies in which they themselves know that what they're announcing is nothing but a blatant lie. And one good example is the recent scandal about the New York Times computers being persistently infiltrated by the Chinese hackers. And according to the New York Times article on January the 30th, Chinese hackers, possibly linked with the Chinese military, hacked and broke into the email accounts of Mr. David Barboza, who is currently the Shanghai bureau chief of the New York Times, as well as the email account of Mr. Jim Yardley, who was the former New York Times Beijing bureau chief. Now, it's needless to say that these hackings by the Chinese authority-backed hackers is totally despicable and disgraceful and inhumane and immoral. Especially, guys, the day after the New York Times disclosed that their computers had been hacked, the day after that, Wall Street Journal also came out disclosing that their computers too had been hacked by the Chinese. And in spite of that, ladies and gentlemen, do you know what the spokesman of the Chinese Foreign Ministry, Miss Hong Lei, said? She, or the Chinese Foreign Ministry, rejected the accusations by the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal about their alleged crimes. So this is what the Chinese Foreign Ministry said. Quote, "The competent Chinese authorities have already issued a clear response to the groundless accusations made by the New York Times. China is also a victim of hacking attacks. Chinese laws clearly forbid hacking attacks, and we hope relevant parties takes a responsible attitude on this issue." Period. I mean, beg your pardon? A competent authority? I tell you what, a competent authority would never make a public statement like this based on a blatant lie. And furthermore, the spokesman, Ms. Hong Lei, she's mentioned that, what? The Chinese laws clearly forbid hacking attacks? Is she trying to pretend she's Luke Skywalker on the good side? And furthermore, the Chinese Foreign Ministry also stated that China is also a victim of hacking attacks? I mean, beg your pardon? China is trying to pretend that they're also poor little victims of pussycat. Now, guys, the people who we are trying to deal with here, the Chinese authorities, they are scary people indeed. Since they can blatantly lie, knowing that what they're stating is nothing but a lie. And they can also lie without any hesitation whatsoever. Now here's a question. Why can they do that? I mean, why can they? What makes them do such an incomprehensible act? Well, the answer is simple. It is because China is not a normal country. They have no free speech. They have no democracy. And they have no human rights. They have nothing. But they have one thing. And that is a one-party dictatorship by the Communist Chinese, or the Communist Party of China. Whatever the Communist Party says becomes the truth in China. Even a lie becomes a truth in China. Because all the media, the newspapers or the TVs, whatever, is totally censored by the Communist Party. You know what I mean? So even a lie becomes a truth in China. And the problem here is that the Chinese government is now trying to apply that domestic rule that lie becomes a truth beyond their borders. Creating turmoil and jeopardy. Therefore, in other words, China is Louis Armstrong. They are remorseless hackers. They lie, they cheat, they deceive, and they even steal. Remember? Back in 1950, they stole Tibet and Mr. Dalai Lama's home. And now we know from this New York Times hacking case and the Wall Street Journal hacking case that whatever is announced by the Chinese government is totally untrustworthy. I know, you know, we all know. I repeat, I know, you know, we all know that any public statement made by the Communist Chinese Party is totally untrustworthy. And this untrustworthiness also applies to the recent territorial dispute between Japan and China, so-called the Senkaku Island dispute. Well, the Chinese calls the islands Diaoyu. But guys, please do not forget that China is Louis Armstrong. And today, in this YouTube speech of mine, I want to prove that. I will prove to you that China is Lance Armstrong. Now, the Communist Chinese government today, they've been claiming that the Senkaku Islands, or Diaoyu, it is an inherent territory of China, and it's been so for the past 600 years, since the Ming Dynasty. That is from 1368 to 1644. And that, according to Beijing, well, the current Beijing government, they've also announced that according to this historical document of an envoy dispatched by the Ming Dynasty to the Ryukyu Kingdom, the current Okinawa, in the 1530s, okay, is a concrete proof that Diaoyu belongs to China, whatever that means. They say they have the proof, but they are never able to actually show us the proof. They only verbally say they do. So if you're a Chinese official, please show it to me. Show me the concrete proof you have. But I suppose that's not enough to claim sovereignty over the Senkaku Islands. And guys, we've got to be very careful when the communist China uses the term inherent territory. Because you remember, back in 1950, when China invaded Tibet, they infuriated Mr. Dalai Lama by stating over the public radio as follows: that Tibet had been and is an inherent territory of China, and that it has finally come home to its motherland. That's what the Chinese government stated on the public radio after the Tibetan invasion. And Mr. Dalai Lama, he's written in books and spoke in dozens of speeches that he could simply not believe what he heard from the radio, that the communist Chinese government had been making such a blatant, unimaginable lie. Now, Dalai Lama has also been mentioning that Tibetans and the Chinese are totally different people, different race. First, they speak different language. 2, they write different letters. And 3, they have different cultures. 4, they have different customs. And 5, they have different religions. In China, religion is a hashish or a marijuana. It's a pot. It's prohibited. Whereas in Tibet, they have the Tibetan Buddhism, respected by Mr. Richard Gere. Now, in spite of all these differences claimed by Dalai Lama, the communist Chinese government, they had stated, and they still claim, that Tibet is an inherent territory of China. This is nothing but a fallacy, ladies and gentlemen, and a farce. Don't you think so? And the fact is, they are applying, the communist Chinese are applying the same strategy now in the 21st century over the Senkaku Islands, claiming that, they call it Diaoyu Islands, are inherent territory of China. Isn't this something we've heard before? Now today, I will prove to you that China is Lance Armstrong. On January the 23rd, an associate professor of the Nagasaki Junsei University, it is a purely Christian university based in Nagasaki, Japan. So this associate professor, Mr. Ishii, he made a public statement on January the 23rd. That's pretty recent. That his recent studies has proven that the Ming Dynasty had renounced all the claims to the disputed islands back in the 1600s. In this book, as you see, this booklet, or dozens of books, this is an historical document called Huangming Shilu. It is an official annals of the Ming Dynasty. So according to this Huangming Shilu, it is clearly described or written. There's a description which is mentioned by the Chinese provincial governor. Quote, that the areas under the Ming Dynasty control ended 40 kilometers from the coastline of China, mainland China, which is the area of the Taoying Island today. Now, as you see on this map, 40 kilometers from the coastline of China is what was claimed by China during the Ming Dynasty, because the description I just mentioned was written or referred to the comment in August 1617. Now, 40 kilometers from the coastline, how far are the Senkaku Islands, ladies and gentlemen? As you see on this map. That's right, it's not 40, it's 330 kilometers away from mainland China, more than 8 times as much. And furthermore, ladies and gentlemen, in this Huang Mingshilu, the historical document that was official document written by, not by me, not by any Japanese, but by the Chinese officials, it clearly mentions, brings out a name of Akashi Doyu. Akashi Doyu was a Japanese envoy from Nagasaki who traveled to China but was caught, arrested, and interrogated by the Chinese Coast Guard commandant. And after that, after the interrogation, he met this Chinese provincial governor I just mentioned to you. And it is clearly written in this Huang Mingshilu that when the Japanese envoy Akashi Doyu and the Chinese provincial governor met, the governor told Akashi Doyu in August 1617 that, as I've told you, quote, the area under the control of the Ming Dynasty ends or ended 40 kilometers from the Chinese coast. The areas surrounding the present Taoying Island. Period. This hard evidence, this concrete evidence alone simply denies the recent claim by the Chinese government that the Senkaku Islands had been their inherent territory for the past 600 years, because this Huang Mingshilu, the Chinese document written by a Chinese official, this was written in August 1617 during the Ming Dynasty. You know what I mean here? And furthermore, if you want some further evidence, I'll give you one more. It is also clearly written in the Huang Mingshilu that the area beyond the 40-kilometer line, or the Taoying Island area, beyond that, is referred to as Kai, right here, as you can see. It's written in Chinese, and it says Kai. It says the waters beyond 40 kilometers, or the Taoying Island, is an open sea, which is it's available for anybody. It's free for any national, any members of a tribe, or even Pirates of the Caribbean, Mr. Johnny Depp. Anybody can investigate or explore, because it was not under the Ming dynasty control. Period. So, the Japanese government has been claiming that the Senkaku Islands were totally uninhabited when Japan incorporated them in 1895. And through the evidences I've shown you, the Senkaku Islands area was not under the Ming Dynasty control whatsoever, because it was beyond the 40-kilometer line back in the 1600s, early 1600s. And in spite of that, on January the 30th, the Chinese frigate warship locked the weapon targeting radar on a Japanese ship. This kind of provocation is a violation of the UN Charter, the United Nations Charter. And it is totally immoral, totally despicable. Don't you think so, ladies and gentlemen? And to my surprise, on the 8th of February, the Chinese Communist government, they rejected Japan's radar lock-on allegations. They denied it, in spite of the fact that the Japanese Navy has the proof that their ships were locked on by the Chinese frigate warship. Here they go again, another blatant lie, Louis Armstrong. Quote, China hopes Japan take effective measures to stop stirring up tension in the East China Sea and making irresponsible remarks. Period. Beg your pardon. It is not us. It is the Chinese who is stirring up the tension around the Senkaku area by violating Japanese territorial waters around Senkaku every single bloody day with their frigate warships. Please don't be oblivious, ladies and gentlemen. Please don't forget. The way the Communist China rejected the Japanese radar lock-on allegation totally resembles how they denied the hacking of the New York Times computer as well as the Wall Street Journal computers. For the very last time, I'll read the quote again. What the Chinese Foreign Ministry stated, denying hacking on American computers. Quote, Chinese laws clearly forbid hacking attacks, and we hope relevant parties takes a responsible attitude on this issue. Man, these guys are, I repeat, remorseless liars and hackers. They cheat, they deceive so confidently. Therefore, what we, the people of the free world, what we badly need now is an emancipation from the communist fabrication. Just for one reason. China is Lance Armstrong. Thank you very much.